Hello, welcome to the Mentally a Badass podcast. I'm so happy to have you today.
Justine, thank you so much. I'm grateful to be here.
Of course, you're so sweet. I'm just so excited to get to know you more, for my audience to get to know you more. So, we're going to be talking about your trauma. I know that your uncle got murdered and your father passed away. I'm so sorry that happened to you. We're going to be talking about that as well as you turning like your pain into purpose. Like, you're very successful. You have your own documentary. Also, I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, so I started watching a little bit of it, but I'm like, that's really awesome that you have your own documentary. I have to finish it. But yeah, so let's learn more about you. So when did your uncle get murdered?
So it was in 2009. It was December 26th, the day after Christmas.
Wow.
The story behind that, just to fill your audience in, is so my uncle, he was like my best friend in the whole world. And still to this day, I mean, he was the most, you know, electric, energizing human. Just he was that person when he walked into a room. You hear people say this. He truly was. They light up the room. Everybody wanted to be near him. He made everyone feel special. He was so incredible. I was lucky to have him as long as I did. So it was my dad's brother. He had moved from Texas back to Baltimore when I was finishing up my senior year in college at Towson University, and he was into buying and selling precious metals. So he was in jewelry. It wasn't necessarily like a retail store where you come in and buy engagement rings and things like that. We were sort of like dealers, like buying and selling precious metals. So my senior year of college, I was helping him with advertising and helping him find customers, people who wanted to sell and buy. And it was like 2008, so the economy was really crashing from everything that was going on with the mortgage collapse and all that. And so the business was running really good. We gotten set up by the individual who ended up who was the killer of my uncle. And that day when it happened, him and I were supposed to be together at the store that morning. We had an appointment with this person. We had met him many times before, and this time was a setup. December 25th, Christmas night, 2009. I ended up being with my family. My uncle was there. I left. Long story short, went to my girlfriend at the time's house, ended up drinking all night. The next day at 10 a.m., I was too hungover to go to the appointment. So I went home and took a nap instead. And then I didn't hear from my uncle all day. So I went to the store at the sun was coming down. It was getting to be dark. So it was winter time, December 26th, 2009. It must have been 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock. And I pulled up and I saw his car there. And I just got real excited because I was always, whenever I got to see him, I was like, oh, good, he's here because he hadn't been answering. And then when I walked into the store, that's when my life changed forever. There was bullet casings all over the ground and shattered glass. And there was definitely a fight and a struggle. And I had found him, killed with 10 shots in his head and his face and 5 in his body. So yeah, that I was 23 years old, I believe. And as crazy as it sounds, for anyone listening, I don't want people to feel sorry for me. I played victim for a long time because of this happening. That's not it anymore. And in fact, as much as I wish it never happened, it did, and I can't change that. And I'm grateful for it because it helped make me who I am today.
Yeah, and the part where you're thinking of like playing, like you're saying, oh, I used to play victim mode and I don't do that anymore. I just feel you have every reason to. I mean, that's horrible. That's horrible what you went through. I can't even imagine walking in and just seeing your uncle murdered. Like, so when you first walked in, you were in shock. Like, can you tell me a little bit of like the aftermath? I guess maybe like a day after. Were you frozen as it happened? Like, what was your? Do you remember your physical response?
Yeah, I do. It's kind of a wild story in itself as well. So I'm definitely like super empath and, very take on other people's emotions and feelings. I can make them my own. But when things go wrong, I've learned about myself, like in that moment of like really now learning about myself, like the worst things that can happen in life, I actually respond pretty well. I mean, in this case, for example, I went to the back of the store. My uncle was laying face down, and I got on my knees and I flipped him over and I held him in my lap and I placed him back down on the ground. Called 911, told them, and then I went and grabbed where right after that I I realized he's dead. I went under our desk where we had a gun, a shotgun, and I went and grabbed the gun. And I actually ran around. We were in a retail shop, but it was in a building, and I ran through the building like looking for somebody. It's crazy thinking back on it. I just ran through looking for someone. I didn't know when it had happened or if the killer was still there or whatever. And then I went outside the front door, around the building, and there's a Goodwill there. And I went into the Goodwill. This is crazy. You're in shock and you're just acting. went into the Goodwill with a loaded shotgun and yelled help, and people just like dropped, like they thought I was, robbing the Goodwill or something.
Hmm.
And I kind of quickly realized, oh my God. And I had the gun, I had it like this, and yelled help. And then I went back down to the store, and this nice woman, I always say, if I tell this story, if she's listening, whoever she is, I can't remember her name. She was some sort of social worker. She came down and she stayed with me until the police ended up taking me with them. So yeah, that's what I did after I found them. And then I waited and waited, and the police came, and then they did what they did and took the body out. And then I got back in the back of the police car. They took me to Baltimore City Police District down there, and right down in the city. And of course, they asked me all kinds of questions, sort of an interrogation, because I was the first one on the scene
Hmm.
right then and there who did it, and that's who it was.
Yeah, and they went ahead and catch them, right?
They did, but it took a long time. It took so that was December 26, 2009. He wasn't convicted of the murder until I think it was 2000, I want to say 18. So
Really?
what
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah. So Baltimore City had the case, and there was a really great detective on the case. I told him who did it, and Baltimore City's a tough place, and there's a lot of crime, there's a lot of murder, so I only have so many resources, and it is what it is. So what happened was my dad. So this was my dad's brother, my uncle. So my dad was writing letters to the FBI, and the killer had committed a crime after my uncle in 2012, a very similar crime. He didn't kill the person, but he kidnapped a jewelry store owner. Long story short, ended up getting convicted of that, got 30 years. And so since that crime was in a similar location, and similar with jewelry store owner and all these things, the FBI cross-read the letters from my dad. He'd been writing them for years to the FBI saying, this is who killed my brother. You got to take this case. And they said, hey, this guy, Daryl Reuter, is onto something here. We should check this out. And they realized, hey, this is the guy we think killed Wayne Reuter. So the FBI took the case from Baltimore City. After they took the case from Baltimore City, it got solved because the FBI's resources, I've come to learn, are incredible.
Wow. I honestly like had no idea that it would take that long, especially since you knew who it was
Yeah,
versus
yeah,
like, like it
that's
already take time for the detective to like figure it out. Like I thought it would just be like maybe less than a year, but wow, that's
yeah.
interesting.
Took a long time. So that playing victim, all those kind of things we were saying earlier, like that's what fed into me being absorbed with like drugs and alcohol, and being victim, and suffering, and the post traumatic stress disorder was just like, I mean, it was crippling. It led me to want to be suicidal. I had suicidal thoughts and things like that. I never acted on anything, but it was just like, I was living in constant fear and paranoia. It's like this guy who killed my uncle, I know is on the loose. I know who he is, and he knows I'm the only one who knows the details about it. So,
God.
it was kind of like, if he was, his actions could, he already killed my uncle. Why wouldn't he kill me too, or attempt to? So that was really
Yeah.
tough. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking as you were talking about it, like especially since he knows you, you know information about him. It's like you thinking you're like the second person. Like I would
Yeah.
be living on edge. And then,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That's where, like, I think I was always an alcoholic and a drug addict. I loved cocaine first and foremost, but I say I think I always was. But after that happened to my uncle, it just went to a whole nother level, and it lasted
Hmm.
for a decade or whatever. It was just constant, and it just kept progressing and progressing. And part of that
Hmm.
was just me trying to cope, self medicate and cope with I was so young, and I didn't know. Looking back, I can unpack it all, and I understand it, and I understand why I did what I did, and the behaviors I had, and all that kind of stuff. But at the time, I was just like trapped in this suffering and this addiction cycle, and it was pure hell.
Did you have people in your life that were trying to motivate you to get out of that lifestyle and were supportive,
Yeah,
like
I
to help
mean,
you out?
yeah, definitely. I mean, my family loves me to death. I love them. I have a great family. I have a great, and I have friends that I consider family that are great as well, and they're always there for me. But as a drug addict and an alcoholic, those listening who are, and if they're recovered, they really understand. You do anything you can to keep using your drugs and alcohol, and you become a master of manipulation.
Hmm.
Also, the pain was so deep about my uncle, and the trauma was so bad, like I didn't know how to address it with even myself. So I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell people like what I was feeling and how hurt I was, and how my mind was like constantly being haunted by what I had seen, and that I was doing lines of cocaine for breakfast, or all night by myself, or whatever it was. It was like drowning myself in vodka. I mean, I didn't, people knew I was struggling for sure. And I always had episodes where like I would get to a breaking point, I end up in the hospital or whatever it was. And all the people that loved me were always there for me, but they didn't understand it either, and I wasn't completely forthcoming with what was going on. So finally, when I did raise my hand and say, hey, this is what's really going on. And I think I really need help, that's when they were really able to truly support me.
Hmm. Yeah, I can definitely understand how it can be isolating when someone doesn't understand you. I mean, I never experienced addiction, but like certain things, let's say medical for me, that no one can understand. But just a feeling of isolation is just certain deep pain where it's like whoever doesn't have to experience that.
Yeah.
When was a turning point for you where you were like, okay, I need to, work on not be pretty much being an addict? I know like it's not easy.
Yeah, so what happened was it kind of came about by dumb luck, sort of. I mean, really, I drove myself to it. But what happened was it was kind of a two part thing.
Hmm.
So the FBI took the case over. I believe it was 2016. So, and the day when they took the case over, or when they announced that, hey, this is the killer, and we're going after him for it, and Wayne Ruder's death, was actually the day that the day we buried my dad. So just crazy all those years later, the coincidence of it happening that day. So, my thought is my dad went to heaven and, did what he had to do to get this wrapped up. So I worked with them pretty closely for like 2 years, and I couldn't tell anyone about it, and it was very private, and I was alone in it. But I knew that a trial was going to come at a certain point, and my addiction was so terrible that I just couldn't I couldn't be strong. I had constant panic attacks, depression, anxiety. I was breaking down. I couldn't hold commitments. I couldn't, it was tough to live life. So I said, I'm not fucking using drugs or alcohol until this is over with. So I
Hmm.
did, and that went like a little over a year until the date that they finally gave him the conviction. The whole time that happened, I couldn't wait to drink again, and I couldn't wait to do cocaine and drugs. So I wasn't really sober. I mean, I wasn't using, but I wasn't really sober, and I couldn't wait. But I got really strong, like physically. I was in the gym. My business was taking off. I did all these incredible things just because I didn't wasn't being weighed down by drugs and alcohol. So
Yeah.
after the case ended, so I got a taste of like what life could look like if I was clear headed and sober. Then when the case ended, I said, all right, well, now that's all in the past. All my problems are over, which was totally not the case. That really fooled me. So I kept on with the drugs and drinking there for 4 months. And I went so hard and it got so bad. I was in like a psychosis and I ended up in the hospital bed. And I was saying to the doctor, I remember they were going to admit me in the psych ward because I was talking about ending my life and things like that. And then I woke up the next day and realized like that was just the worst feeling. It was the lowest point, one of the lowest points in my life. I've had a few, but
Hmm.
that was one of them. And when I woke up that day, I said, fuck this. I'm not meant to be this Michael Reuter. I'm never going to fucking drink again. I'm never going to do cocaine again in my life. And my family said, sure, yeah, right. Because they, this has been happening on and off all the time. And I never have. That was coming up on 7 years, this August.
Congratulations.
Thank you. A good
That's
7 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And then just hearing that you ended up in the hospital, I feel like once you're in the hospital bed, that's like rock bottom. That and like also just like being homeless or something like that. Like that's complete
Mhm.
rock bottom, and it's just like I feel like once people are there, it's like okay, yeah, I don't like this. Because another thing too I kind of want to talk about with the feelings of like wanting to die is I guess my question is, and this is here comes the sensitive stuff, is did you like actually want to die or just want the
Yeah.
struggle to stop?
Yeah. I think number two there. So I spent a lot of time in bed alone or whatever it was. And I was like, it was all like, what I think there's a term for it, maybe like suicidal ideations or something. Yeah, and it was what that did was give me this temporary relief in my brain. It was like all this can end and it can all stop.
My
And that's
God, I like
all it
thought.
was.
Why am I laughing? I literally
No,
think the same thing. Okay.
it was just a fantasy. It was
Yeah.
like, that because it's constant suffering and pain. I couldn't get out of this web of these drugs and alcohol and it's just like life is terrible. I'm never happy, and the world thinks I'm this like outgoing, happy, successful person. I kept that image going.
Yeah.
Inside I wasn't, and it was like I'm lying to myself and I can't be me, and who am I? And it's like fucking terrible. I mean, absolutely, anyone going through something like this is like my heart goes out to you. And that's why I even talk about these things, because I think it helps other people. Fuck that. No one should live like that. And you don't have
Yeah.
to. You don't have to. So I never acted on it. I never was going to do it or anything. It
Mhm.
was always just like a temporary escape. I did take it as far as one time as putting a gun in my mouth. And I remember I wasn't going to do anything. I just wanted to see like what it felt like. I think
Mhm.
that's, Justine, that is the scariest thought. That's the hardest thing for me to say. Like I could talk about all this stuff. That's the hardest part to say because I really did that. And
Mhm.
looking back on that with like a sober, clear head, with a daughter now, I'm a father, it's like, what the fuck did I do? Like I really
Yeah.
did. I really put that in my mouth. I really wanted to see like what does this feel like? And I remember not even caring, like not even being scared. That's how bad my life had gotten.
Yeah, yeah, and I appreciate you sharing that. Especially like going deep into the whole putting a gun in your mouth. I definitely know how that feels because
Mhm.
you're like, okay, like how, like what would happen if I actually do this? Like I've never put a gun in my mouth and I purposely do not have guns anywhere near me, like at all. I even have my boyfriend sell his, like, get rid of his gun
Yeah.
when we started living together. But because I know myself, I would end up doing the same thing as you. And but for me, I had like moments where I just like looked at like my pill bottle and I like put it all on my hand. I'm like, I wonder what would happen if I just take all of these.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like it would just all stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That resonates. And, thinking back on it, when saying that, like, that's the crazy thing too. I did that too. Like, I would take, I didn't want to, like I said, I didn't want to die or anything like that. But I was looking back, I was crying out for help, and you do crazy things, like things that I think I did now. And I look back, I'm like, that is so absolutely crazy. But I understand why I did it. Maybe I would take a whole bottle of like Tylenol or Advil or whatever and mix with melatonins. And I would like sprinkle the bottle all over my room, hoping my girlfriend would find it. Or like call my sister or something and say, I just took a bunch of pills or whatever, and I don't want to live
Hmm.
anymore. But really, I wasn't trying to die. I guess it was my way of reaching out for help. And
Yeah.
there's a way to really go about things. That ain't the way.
Yeah.
But for that influence and that you're dealing with that level of trauma, that level of pain, depression, you act very in crazy ways.
Yeah, and you know why that happens? Like, so we have like our emotional brain and our logical brain. So when you're in high emotion, like you think, could you look back at it now and you're like, why did I do that? Like there was other ways because your logical brain is like working. Like yeah. But then when your emotional brain takes over, you are like, we're all like completely different people. Like
Yeah,
our brains are operating so differently that once we come out of that episode, we're just like, who the heck was that? Like, have those moments where you're like, what? Like, was that me?
yeah,
And it's so scary. And like, I literally have, I don't know if you saw like on our social media, we actually do also have like a clothing line with graphics and such. And one says, nothing scares me more than my brain.
yeah. I think I'll buy that shirt. Well, I might change it now because now I know that I have the ability to change my brain, and to use my brain as a tool and a resource to help me feel the way I want to feel and think the way I want to think and all those things.
Yeah, and it's all about not letting your brain take over. And that's like why I put that nothing scares me more than my brain because if it does get into like if you get I get sometimes I'll get like scared if I'm like triggered, then my the emotional brain's going to take over. And then it's going to say, "Oh, I think the best thing you can do right now is kill yourself." Like
Yeah,
like that's what your brain is saying. It's like this is the only way out and it's horrifying. It's
yeah,
absolutely horrifying. So,
absolutely. I agree completely. I mean, the best thing I ever did eventually was address all this stuff, and your brain and your body, they don't know, and you just sweep all this trauma and all this stuff under the rug, and you just throw down bottles and pills and lines of powder, and it's just like it's still waiting there for you. It's just like, so eventually, you got to face those things head on and go through the storm and come out the other side.
yeah, and our brain is designed to protect us ever since we're cave people or, running from a bear. Like that's what our brain's designed to do. But in modern day, it's like not, it's trying to protect you, but it's not protecting you like properly. Like it's probably thinking like, you're in so much pain, you're going through so much trauma. You also have like the drugs and everything. And you're like, okay, what can I do to protect my
Yeah,
person?
another
Okay,
eight.
there's really nothing else. Let's go jump off a bridge.
Yeah.
Like, I know, like that. I kind of don't know why I laugh at that stuff. I guess I'm
No,
just
no,
trying to.
I like your sense of humor. I mean, I don't like to offend other people, so a lot of the dark humor I have is all about myself. But
Mm-hmm. Yes, same.
I do it a lot, like with my father's death and what I went through with my uncle. Like I've been working on some comedy routines and things like that for fun, and it's all around like my experiences and what I went through, and I poke fun at myself a lot and like the deepest, darkest things I went through, and it's like it's nice to shed light on it a little bit, in a positive way.
Yeah, and I feel like we need that. Like, even though the topic of mental health obviously is very important, very sensitive and such, but it's like the reason I add humor to this brand is because we need to have some type of laughter to feel a sense of relief.
Right. Yeah.
Like that's the main reason. And yeah, like it's always like thinking about what you're saying, like not like everything I post on the Mentally About Us Instagram as a joke, it's always somehow routed back to like my trauma in a
Right.
way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Which is
Yeah.
awesome. I mean, it's I think the best thing you can do, is provide someone a smile or a laugh, and especially when you tie it to something so terrible, and it
Hmm.
lets people know, like, oh, well, then they must be doing okay, and
Yeah.
and then it tells them, whatever they want to relate it to in their life. I guess I can be okay too, which is a beautiful thing,
Yeah. Do you want to hear a joke?
of course.
So I did have a person on my podcast who's a comedian, and he has
I love
bipolar
stand-up
dis.
comedy, by the way.
Huh?
Sorry to interrupt. I said I love stand-up comedy.
Oh, okay. I think I said I love that guy. I'm like, oh, you listened to that episode? But 'cause he does bring up some jokes in the episode I had with him. His name is Dave, but he's a comedian and he has like dark humor. So here's a joke. Okay. So he was in his bathroom and he starts like downing pills down his throat. So he calls his wife for help. And the wife says back, "There's more under the sink."
Okay. She wants to finish them off.
When he gave me the joke, I the way he said it, it wasn't much of introducing the joke. He was just casually talking to me and like
Yeah.
telling a story.
Yeah.
And so he was like, "Yeah, like I was ready to kill myself. I was about to, like,
Yeah.
swallow some pills. Then I asked for my wife for help, and she was like, "Oh, there's more under the sink."
Yeah. I was in
Oh my
That's great.
god.
I love it. I love it.
You should have saw my face. I was like, "Wait, what?" And I was like, "Oh, this is the joke."
I have I was my dad, when he was dying, was in the hospice, and he was
Mhm.
there for about 2 months. So my little nephew would come all the time, and he'd be walking down the hallway with his toys, and he was 4 or 5, and he'd be walking down the hallway, and he'd have a bucket of toys. And one time he dropped the bucket. He started kicking the bucket down the hall, and the nurse came out and said, "You can't kick that bucket here." And I said, "Tell her what I taught you." And he looked up at her and said, "Why can't I kick the bucket? Everyone else is." We were in the hospice.
Oh my god.
Then and then I was wondering this, in the hospice, let's say there's a fire, right? The place goes up.
Yeah.
What do they do? I mean, who's priority? Is it women
Mm.
and children, or is it like who's ever got the longest to live? Like, what do you do in a hospice when it catches on fire? Who do you save?
Oh
Who's
god,
priority? So I
that
don't know.
sounds stressful.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like who's gonna die first? Let's see who we're gonna
Try
protect.
try and shed light on all that, and I'm into the
Yeah.
comedy of it. So.
Yeah. There was this Instagram like animation that I saw and it was a cartoon and then there was this person who was a muffin. And then it was someone about to eat like that was hungry. It was like, "Oh, I'm hungry." And the muffin's like, "I'm right here, eat me." And then he was like, "Okay, I'm gonna go have this other, like it was some other food." And then he's like, "Okay, no, yeah, I think I am still hungry." And then the muffin's like, "Have like here, I'm here." And then it was just like basically the muffin kept saying, "Hi, I'm here to because you're hungry." And then eventually at the end she was like, "Kill me." I was like, "Oh my god." And I was I'm like, this is the animation. I'm like, I died. I was like, no pun intended, but I'm just like,
You laugh. You got you got a good you got a good razzmatazz about you, Justine. You got a good laugh. It's contagious.
makes me so happy, like
Well,
something
it's
that's
awesome to
cool
be able to
about
talk
me.
about hard things in a fun way,
Yeah, I
because
mean,
it's
you
just
kind of have
real.
to.
It's real, right? I mean, it's like so. You talked about my documentary.
Mhm.
I made that out of trying to shed some light on my vulnerability. And once I got over myself, it was like, no one cares about me. Played all these things. And it was like, dude, like, you know what? Like, if it's going to help me and then also be able to open up others, then I'm willing to say or do anything. And that's the kind of the point I got. And, the coolest thing was, because no, I hate when people suffer, and it
Hmm.
happens. And everyone has their own shit, whether it's good or it's just part of life. So the documentary I made, I got a message one time, and it was this guy. I didn't even know him. He messaged me on Instagram, and he said, "Hey, I was going to kill myself on my birthday, you know, but I saw your documentary, and I raised my hand to my family and told them what my plans were." And we had like a short conversation back and forth that day only. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. I'm not qualified to do anything other than tell people about me and my experiences. I don't give anyone advice or guidance in any way, shape, or form. I'm just telling you me and what I've lived. And if you can
Hmm.
pull anything from that you want to, go ahead. But so I didn't know what to do in this situation. But the beauty of it was, what showed me was that, like, holy shit, like, you know, you're showing your vulnerability gives other people the power to show theirs and ask for help. Look, I don't know if that person's still around. I don't know if I saved their life, maybe just for the day. I wish that they're living a wonderful, beautiful life right now. But that day, it showed me, don't be a bitch, Michael, and share your experiences with other
Don't be
people
a
so it can help
bitch.
them. Yeah. you know?
No, I love that. And it's like, I love talking about how powerful it is to share your story. I mean, with the documentary and that guy reaching out to you saying that he was going to kill himself, but he decided not to after watching the documentary. I feel like he's most likely probably still alive because he reached that dark moment and you switched like his mindset towards that, because I feel like, if they see one thing, like some type of media, and they're like, that gives them hope. That hope usually stays there, most
Yeah.
likely. So I truly like think that you really did save that person's life. Like, how amazing is that someone's
Yeah.
alive
I
because of you?
and that's like kind of it's like crazy because I have this like business, and it's such an entrepreneur endeavor, and it's business, and it's like business is tough,
Hmm.
and it does well, and it is what it is, but it can be very rewarding financially and other ways. Nothing in my life, other than, I would say, the birth of my daughter, has ever given me the reward of me, like, of something I've done to make
Hmm.
me feel valued and like a real contributor to this world, more than that message from that person. It was like, holy shit, like, you had the ability to truly change something here, like something very, like, amazing. And nothing I do in business, I love the business, but
Hmm.
if I'm not running the company I have with my team, and we're the best in the world at what we do, I think somebody
Hmm.
else is, and it's okay. The world's not going to change because I own the company I own. It's great, but I think I can help change people's lives by sharing the experiences that I've had, and ultimately, that's where I want to end up and what I want to be doing for my life.
And you have a very valid point, because I like to, because you are very successful financially and everything. And the fact that you said, I have this business, I'm very successful financially, but what I did with saving that guy's life, like, that meant more to me. And it's because, like, us humans, money's not supposed to, I mean, it's used as a tool for freedom, and that, helps and create happiness, which I feel like a lot of people don't know that. They don't realize that. They chase money and they think, oh, if I have more and more money, then I'm going to be happy, which that's not the case. It's they use the money the wrong way, and then it turns into greed, and that's a whole other story. But the point that you had this realization, you're like, oh wait, I had the opportunity to save somebody, have the ability I actually had the ability to feel how amazing that is. And not many people have that. You have moments where you're like, what am I doing with my life? Am I
Yeah,
like, do I suck at this? And like, why is this happening to me? Whatever. And it's like, okay, what do I, every human being needs to feel like they have purpose in life, because if they don't have that purpose, it then leads into the depression, the drugs, and this, and just goes down that route. But anyway, I would basically, what I was saying is just like, I'm glad you brought up that point, and I hope people can listen to what you said, because it's so important. Just understanding like what's actually important in life, and
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and like, with money too, such an important topic for people. Like, I grew up in a townhouse with six people, and my parents never had money, and they raised us, and they raised us to be honest and awesome people morally and with good values, and they taught us to love and care and be compassionate. So like they in my opinion were the most amazing parents and gave us everything we needed to be successful in life. But it wasn't like a financial thing, right? So paid for
Hmm.
my own cars and colleges, and I was paying for my own haircuts when I was 14 and leaving high school and going straight to work. When my friends were going, wherever they were getting their own cars, I had to pay for whatever, all that stuff. So early on, when I got into business as a young man, I did have an ego, and I did think it was about money, and I had to learn that lesson. And I used to brag, and I used to want a Lamborghini or whatever, that bullshit. And then when I got some money and I could separate like month to month where I was comfortable to just live, and
Live
you
life,
start
yeah.
leveling up different ways and get to certain levels of success, I realized a certain point that like this doesn't fulfill me, like going, making $1 million, making 5 million, being worth 10, 20, what, then when you get to 20, what's it? You want 40, you want 100, you see these billionaires, they have 1 billion, they want two. Yeah. They have one yacht, they want two. When does it
Hmm.
stop? Right. Where
Yeah, it's just human. Like keep. There's no like stopping. There's just like, I want more. I want more.
I found a very simple recipe for success for me. It's not stacking trophies and stacking money and stacking items and objects and bigger houses and better cars, right? And I like having a nice car, and I live in a modest but nice home with my family. I'm comfortable. I don't need anything else. It's not that those things for me. Okay. It's leveling up myself as a person, right? So like, and it's my happiness and joy, and the happiness and joy I can bring to others, and the energy and positivity I can bring to the people that work with me. Coming home and bringing positive energy and love to my family, being there to support my siblings, my mother, my now daughter, these kind of things. Leveling up myself as a person, and that's where I'm finding a true joy, creating new versions of me.
Hmm.
That every time you unlock a new level for yourself where you feel you're better mentally, a better clarity. Like it's my first year, 2024. I went a whole year without any anxiety, depression, or panic attacks. And it took a
Really?
lot. Yeah, I've done so much therapy. I've done so much shit to get to my brain to where it is in my life. And it's like, and that was such an accomplishment. So leveling up those versions of myself is, anyone listen, I'm telling you, the reward, it is fucking, it ain't money. Money doesn't fix all those things.
Yeah. Like I said, at the end of the day, it's a tool for because obviously the modern day we live in, like for example, like therapy, like money, like
Yeah.
But I have a question. So you said 2024, you didn't like have depression, anxiety, panic attacks. I can understand the depression, the panic attacks, but I feel like we all have anxiety. So can we talk a little bit more like that? Like how did you fully avoid it? 'Cause I also feel like every human being just has like anxiety just to, I mean, I guess you could just say stress. Like it's normal. Like there's like
Yeah,
a normal level of anxiety.
for sure. I mean, for me, like after my uncle's death and all, forever, would have panic attacks, and they were terrible. Like I would call them like post traumatic stress disorder attacks almost. They were really bad. And then over the years, they got less and less and lighter and lighter. And then once I got sober, they still happened, but it was like way less than it ever was when I was using. And the anxiety was always there. And for me, the depression and anxiety at times was so crippling. And it was crippling to the extent where like I couldn't get out of bed. I didn't want to get out of bed. I had no motivation. I was scared to like, yeah, I'm some extroverted guy,
Hmm.
people know me with like this you can't even be telling the truth, but I wouldn't even be able to go to the grocery store because I'd be so terrified and scared. Or if someone called me, I would be so scared to pick up the phone. I would be triggered that someone was calling me. I would maybe need to talk to them. Like it was just insane how bad the anxiety, depression, and everything was. So for me, the experience of the anxiety was like, I kind of learned, was very rooted in letting the past dictate like what my future may look like, which was not the
Hmm.
case. Like the past, I just now is like over. Fuck it, is my experiences. I learn from it. I use them where I need them. And the future, I have no clue about because it hasn't happened. So it's
Hmm.
just like I really learned to like be just like in here. Like when I sat down with you, I was like doing a million things. Got here for the podcast, and like I don't have my phone or anything. Like I'm right fucking here with me and you, Justine. Roads. The only road leads to you right now. That's it. I got one lane road, and it's Justine Roads. That's fucking it right now. This ain't no four lane traffic. Everything going every fucking way. This is one car, one Justine Roads. That's it. Super fucking here. So right in the moment. And then one thing I did truly that alleviated, I believe, the anxiety completely was I completely changed the way that I eat. So I think it was
Mm.
too much. I think since I don't do alcohol and drugs, I had given myself excuses to abuse myself in other ways, which was like, cakes and cookies and sugars, and I ate ice cream every night and then have the rest of it for breakfast, like shit like that. And I don't know why I feel dumb saying this, but the reality is I got into some woman in their podcast and it was all about carnivore and things like that. And I'm not a carnivore. I don't eat just carnivore right now, but I did change the way I eat completely. And I experimented with it all last year, and I didn't eat any processed foods for the most part. 95%. I didn't eat any processed foods, sugar. I don't drink anything except for coffee and water. And I learned your gut is attached to your brain. I didn't know that to the
Yeah.
extent of it, but I think that was the final recipe for me to alleviate this stuff. Along with I have to stay focused and stay in the moment, but staying in the moment paired with the right nutrition, like, and exercise, sleep, exercise, and nutrition. I didn't realize they will change your life.
The basic human necessities. Who
Yeah,
knew, right?
yeah, yeah, but they're hard to put into practice. So I get people
Yes.
who it's tough. Like, it really is hard, and you got to take it one small step at a time, which I've done for a long time to get to where I am now.
I want to add something to that because I actually learned this literally like this past week. So, there's this song from my favorite artist, Barrett, and she's not like a household name, at least not yet. And her song is called Does God Cry? And she was like, this is going to be healing for you guys. And she kept saying that. In my head, I'm just like, okay, like, some songs could, I guess, be healing, like, based off of the relatability in the words. So I was like, all right. But then when I listened to the song, she did say it was like 555 frequencies. So it's at a certain frequency, the
Mhm.
audio. And with certain frequencies, your brain, like, does things, right? So she incorporated, like, her music with that in the background. And I'm telling you, when I listen to that, I it takes me out of fight or flight if I was in it. Like literally I feel like a rush to my like a blood flow, and like
Yeah.
I can feel my body doing things like
Wow.
subconsciously, because I'm not thinking about doing this and trying to like, it's like you kind of feel it, like you feel the
Yeah,
anxiety
it's
like
making you
trying
do a
to,
little happy dance, and you don't even it's
yeah, and
making
it's
you
like,
put you in the present moment.
yeah, it pretty much just like if you feel like you're in pain or anxiety or you're anxious, because some people may not even realize it because it's just so like normalized in their brains and everything. It's like when you listen to that song, it's like you just lay there and it's just detoxing in a
Yeah.
way.
Oh, you're gonna have to send me that. I would love to check that out.
Yeah, no, oh my god. And then also just like her voice is just so beautiful. And then like the lyrics, I'm just like, you literally saved me. Like she's so, honestly, I
That's
already
awesome.
loved her music as it is because it's like super relatable. Like her recent album's a little different than her previous work. Like her previous work was a little bit more on the depressing side because it was more like journals in a way and super relatable. And then now she's like switching from being depressed to kind of like whole woman empowerment, kind of like, I say acting like a slut or anything like that, but the way the album is, it starts from desperation to like domination, and it's like a woman's like experience going through a breakup and just kind of that world. So it's
Yeah.
it's two completely different brands in a way, but I guess it's how she's just growing as an artist. But yeah, no, definitely listen to that song so you can kind of like see what I'm talking about. But I'm bringing that up because I feel like that's another thing you can add
Yeah.
to help relieve that. And it's like, I love it because when I'm under a lot of stress, the first thing I think about is like, okay, I'm gonna go on the streets to the grocery store and buy myself a bottle of wine. Like,
Mhm.
I literally have a grocery store right down my block. Like, I can just literally just go there and just like, I also have a Wawa across the street that's 24 hours. Like, if I really wanted a bottle of wine, like, I can get it so easily. And I just have like those moments where I'm just like, my brain goes straight to alcohol, which is not good. But I was never like quote unquote alcoholic, but like I could be if I give into those thoughts often. You know what I mean? And like there's also alcoholism in my family as well. So I
Mhm.
also kind of be mindful of that I could
Yeah,
be
definitely.
susceptible to it. But now, since like me listening to that music, it takes me out of that high stress that I'm feeling where I have that urge to drink alcohol to just stop it. It takes me out of it. And I'm just like,
That's incredible.
this is so beautiful. And I'm like, does she realize how much she's changing my life?
Well,
And so,
you should send her a message.
yeah, yeah, I've done that before, but like her thing is like, I've sent her a bunch of messages. You can only send so many, but I'm seeing her in concert in about a month.
Good for you. That's awesome.
Yeah. Imagine, oh my God, who she plays that song, I'm going to be like, I
It's
want
a
to feel
good
like I'm
story.
like in a different universe. Oh
Oh
my
yeah,
gosh.
hearing it live would be incredible for you. Yeah, you have to
I've
share that with me.
seen,
That sounds awesome.
yeah, I've seen her live like 3 times, I think, 3 times in a matter of like 2 years.
Wow. Well, I've
I'm
been
a kind of a fan, you know?
that. No, that's good. That's awesome to be a fan of something like that, especially that brings you joy and can really, put you in a present moment and things like that. You got to share with me. I'm interested to listen to it for sure.
Yeah, no, she's truly fantastic. I would to ask you something before I like forget. It's kind of like I want to ask you like 10 minutes ago, but my question is how do you detach yourself, like your worth, from like your business to like just yourself personally? At least like for me, I feel like, having your own business, being like the front, like you make all decisions, getting the clients, doing this. It's like how do you detach yourself from like because I have challenges with like self-worth just from like my childhood trauma and I struggle like with that. So like this question is more for me.
Yeah, no, no, that's it should be. That's amazing. Also, it's that's a good question. I mean, it really is, and resonates with me in a lot of ways. So I didn't detach myself for a long time. My happiness or joy or self-worth or the way that I thought others perceived me was based on the success I had in business, right? Nothing else really
Hmm.
mattered. It's kind of like our culture too. Like if you
Yeah.
make money, you're important, and if you don't, you're not.
Right.
It's kind of bullshit to me. But at one time it wasn't. What matters to me really is who people are and the heart that's inside of them. But it was like how much money did I make each month, and it was like was it a good month or a bad month, and that's what dictated it, which is fucking crazy
Hmm.
because it's just completely irrelevant. But now, where my company is and my business, and the way I look at it is like this. Truthfully, I had to do all the work in the therapy to detach myself from the business because it's gotten so big for me to take on the brunt of it. It's a completely separate entity. There's a business, and I'm part of the business, but I can't control everything. So what everything that happens in business is not me, it's just
Hmm.
business. It just is what it is. So I just have a really good
Hmm.
like viewpoint in the way that I look at things. I try and be honest. I try and be ethical, moral, above board, and completely transparent. And when things go wrong or things go south or you lose a client or you get bad customer review or things like that happens. You can't control everything. So as long as
Hmm.
you're doing your best and you're staying true to your morals and your values and there's no disconnect there with what you're doing, then I don't have
Hmm.
any problems with it. It is what it is. I mean, being an entrepreneur, give you an idea, my company's like 40 employees. We work in 5 states. We do hundreds of real estate transactions a month on the title side, title and escrow. So there's tons of customers. You're dealing with hundreds of real estate agents a month. You're dealing with hundreds of buyers and sellers of properties, attorneys. Look, there's claims, there's lawsuits. Like you realize fast, like your job is to eat shit every day and you don't know what shit you're going to eat. And you kind of just have to normalize it. It's part of the game. That's the thing. It's just a game. It's a chess game.
Oh yeah.
If you're playing the game to be good at it and be the best at it, and your intentions are to deliver the best customer service you can while being the best leader you can for the people that work with you on your team, then like, yeah, things are going to happen. But I don't have any problems with that because I know what my intentions are with everybody. So it just is what it is. Some things, the outcome is the way I want, yippee. Some things it's not. Okay, let's fix that and learn from it, whatever. But at the end of the day, like I'm not an entrepreneur or a business owner. Like I'm a dad, I'm a husband, I'm a brother, I'm a son, I'm an uncle. I'm an uncle just like my Uncle Wayne was, man. I just try and be just like him. And better believe all my nieces and nephews, I'm their favorite. I've programmed them. That's the one thing
You
I do on
program them?
I manipulate them. I manipulate them from birth. Who's your favorite uncle? Who's your favorite uncle? Cake pops, everything. For sure.
I
That's
do
the
that
one
joke too
thing in this life I
myself.
manipulate is my nieces and nephews. Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I'm at this moment. I'm like technically their only aunt because my brother-in-law has like all brothers, and then like it's just me and my sister. So I go to my like the oldest, who's 10 years old, and I was like, "Ariane, I'm your favorite aunt, right?" And she's like, "You're my only aunt," and I'm like, "Exactly." Like
Yeah,
I guess I
yeah,
don't really have much I can compete, but I guess whenever the other people get married and have wives, then yeah, technically they'd be more on. But I'm like, better not forget me, and this better not be like who's gonna take you to like Bali or like.
yeah. That's what I do. Whatever they want to go, whatever they want to do. But to go back to your question, because that's a really important one with the disconnect. I heard something recently that like super like connected, and it was something about like where guilt comes from or something. And it's
Hmm.
like if you aren't aligned, if your actions aren't aligned with your values or whatever, then like guilt will come. So like an example would be like if somebody's like cheating on their spouse or something, and then they don't, but that's not like who truly that they want to be and how they want to, then they won't feel the way they need to feel, right? As like an example. So like I think it's the same way in business
Hmm.
and with everything in life. So like as long as that your morals and values line up with like your actions and those are
Hmm.
aligned, well then there's so much you can't control. So once you get really good at like understanding that you don't have control and you only have the ability to react to things, then it's really good. And you learn a lot of that in like recovery. And I've been to rehab and mental institutions, all that shit. I did some crazy brainwave neuroscience therapy. Shout out to supermind.us. They are absolutely
Interesting.
incredible. Disclaimer: I am an investor in that company now, or I was an investor, or yeah, I guess I invested in it because
Giving money.
well, no, I thought it was it changed my life forever. They help you trade your brain, your neural pathways.
What is it called again?
Supermind, the website's supermind.us. And I went there and I did
Oh.
20 days of therapy, and it's 3 hours a day for 20 days is what I did. And it was the most incredible therapy I ever did. Some rehabs and stuff like that were incredible too, but this was just the best thing I've ever done in my life. It helps you change your neural pathways. But with that being said, like you got to learn, like you can't control things, you got to give up
Hmm.
control. And that's part of recovery too, is giving up that control and realizing that everything is okay. Whatever happens is okay. They're just moments. You have to learn to process them.
Yeah, and I think what I've learned from everything you said is all of these thoughts that I have with like feeling so attached, like my personal life with like work it definitely comes from, my childhood and just like the old like traditional like idea of if you keep getting promotions at work and it's like all getting praise and such. Like I like out of everybody in my family, I'm the only one who pursued entrepreneurship. I'm talking like everybody, like even like uh
Good for you.
cousins and such. Like I'm the only one that's doing something that I'm doing. And so when we're at like family gatherings, you know how it's all like, oh, you haven't seen each other like a year, oh, what have you been doing, like, you know what I mean? And so it's like I don't talk about like work stuff that's connected to money, because I'm going to talk about stuff that's more passionate. And
Yeah,
I'll bring up
I'm the
like
same way.
the mental health stuff or whatever, and I feel like it's kind of like they like don't care because it doesn't like bring in money or something. I mean, yeah, I mean, like I said, it does a little bit right now, but
Yeah.
like it's not something that's like it's paying my bills, or I feel like it's just not important unless there's money attached to it. So
Yeah,
then it
well,
just
you
kind
need
of,
to completely disregard everything and just go with your gut and your heart, because what you're doing here with this podcast, I'm telling you, is incredible. I mean, even having me on here for myself, I mean, there's so much bullshit going on in my business life and whatever. And just sitting here talking to you in the middle of the day today is like, I am very happy right now. I am like in the moment with you. I'm present. Like you're giving me this like incredible energy that I can't wait to bust out this door and we're done and just like go give it back to like all these people here at my work with me. Like it's awesome. It's so fucking cool. And I mean, just from my experience, like I don't have much desire to talk about business truthfully. Like when I go on podcasts, like it's like this, like I don't want to go. I get asked to be on the podcast about real estate and about the millionaire podcast and all these things. Like I don't know. It doesn't move the needle for me. Like, it just doesn't. And at dinner with family and all these kind of things, like it's not what I want to be. What defines me. I think I'm more valuable as a human than as an entrepreneur. So I don't know. I can resonate on that with you for sure. But stick to your gut and your heart, because the thing with entrepreneurship too is until you fucking really make it, no one's a fan.
yeah,
Everyone's a
exactly.
doubter. Everyone's, and then when you do, some people are fans, some people are jealous, some people are, whatever, out to get you. It's like you got to just understand the game that the
It's so amazing how like you're telling me like I'm helping you and you're helping me. Like I get so happy and excited when I meet another person and we just like vibe so well. And it just creates so much happiness because at the end of the day, like when humans connect, like that's happiness. Like it's
yeah,
an energy thing. And
definitely, yeah, 100%.
yeah.
And that's what I think. Well, that's what a lot of people crave too. Is like community. Like what's
Hmm.
important in life? I mean, it's so simple, it's like sleep, eat, nutrition, community, connection. I really am a firm believer in a lot of these like cliche things you probably see on the internet nowadays, but like love over, fear is like the lowest, feeling and emotion and vibration, and love is the highest. And it's like, I find myself going to the fear sometimes, and you just remember and just go to the love. And it's like, when you can live where when anything can happen, and it's not going to dictate. You might have to process things that happen badly. I had a friend whose father just passed. It was a funeral yesterday. I was crying and sad, and I talked to them, and because I lost my father, and I just know how it feels. I know how hard it is. I process it. It is what it is, and then I got to go on with my life. Bad things are going to happen, not if, when. And are you going to
Hmm.
let them dictate like all your joy and all your happiness and your path forward all the time? And then
Mm.
when good things happen, you're like, I'm killing it. You take it personally, like you're doing something great. It's the same thing. You can't control what you can't control. So it's kind of an art of like mastering, yourself and your emotions, which it's a constant game to get better at for yourself.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. If like you just kind of live life like going through it every day, just trusting the universe, and like the less that you hold on to, it's like the happier you'll be. And it's a lesson that takes a lot of time for someone to learn. And I really hope that people who are listening to this have learned this lesson. I just feel like when more people learn it, it's just we can people as society would just we'll all heal together, because at the end of the day, like that's like where to start when it comes to like just the chaos. But mm, mm, mhm, mm. Yeah. Yeah. Mm. That's so true. That is so true. I love how real you are. So, okay, so Michael, I want you to tell everybody where to find your documentary, Making Mike, so they can go and check it out. I was going to say that. Thank you so much for coming on. I really enjoyed our conversation. I'm so excited for everyone to listen. This like makes me so happy, and I'll tell you why after I click. Well, I'm not gonna put in there saying, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna go click stop." Like I'm not gonna say that. Obviously, I'm gonna cut that part out. Okay, thanks for listening. Okay, it's just I'm just gonna do some type of outro music and just make it make sense when I edit it.